Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we are covering the scheduled and the tribal areas, right? That is the topic on which we have been discussing right now. Within this particular series of the scheduled and the tribals, okay? Within this particular series of the scheduled and tribals, all these are the topics we have scheduled for the discussion. Like starting with the introduction part, then the scheduled areas in India and overview of it, then criteria for the identification of scheduled areas, then the constitutional provisions and the governance, then concerns related to the scheduled areas, then the administration of the scheduled areas, then scheduled tribes, then general concerns of the tribal community, then the addressing the challenges, significance of the indigenous communities, problems that are being faced by the tribal groups, conclusion, and the administration of the tribal areas. Okay, so these are the topics we have scheduled for the discussion. If we talk about the topic we have covered so far, basically we have done with the introduction part. We have done with the scheduled areas in India and overview of it. Done with the criteria for the identification of scheduled areas. Done with the constitutional provisions and the governance. Done with the concerns that are related to the scheduled areas. Done with the administration of the scheduled areas. Done with the scheduled tribes. Okay. The topic on which we have been discussing right now, this topic is the general concerns of the tribal community. This is the topic on which we have been discussing. The topic we are left with, these are the addressing the challenges, significance of the indigenous communities, problems that are being faced by the tribal groups, conclusion, and the administration of the tribal areas. Okay. So this is the picture that we have created so far altogether. Basically, in this lecture, we will start from where we have left in the previous one. Okay. In the previous lecture, basically, we were discussing about the agriculture expansion. All right. We had discussed about the slash and burn agriculture, like how this basically impacted the indigenous people. Okay. Thereafter, we have discussed non-tribal entities when they encroaches the forest land for the purpose of their agriculture expansion. Then how this kind of thing basically affected the livelihood or the dwellings of the tribal communities or the indigenous communities that we also known as Adivasis. Plantations, I have explained you like what is the difference between the agriculture and the plantation. Okay. Like the conversion of forest to the monoculture plantation. Okay. So there was a one thing that I forget to connect with the biodiversity. Like basically when we talk about the forest is a natural and natural forest oftenly having the one thing that is what we call biodiversity. It means that the forest is containing not only the single type of tree, it is containing various type of trees. All right. So basically when this is the forest that containing the biodiversity, but when we convert the forest into the monoculture plantation, for example, if we cleared the 10 acre of the forest area or the forest land and then made a plantation, and suppose we had you can say planted the trees of rubber, oil palm, and all. Okay. So basically what we will see that those 10 acres, when it was a forest, basically that contained trees of various species and various kind of plant species. But when we cleared the 10 acre and when we converted into the monoculture plantation, basically now it only contains the rubber or the oil palm. Okay. It means that the diversity or the biodiversity that was previously presented there, now it has been removed from. And it is also impacted the availability of traditional forest resources. Like we can say the trees that were previously available there might be some of those trees were resourceful for the indigenous communities that are living over there. But because now we cleared the forest, we cleared that 10 acre of the land. So because of this, the trees or the you can say the area that has been cleared, that also reduced those trees that were resourceful for the indigenous community. So that also reduces their resources. Okay. Now, if you move forward in the topic of the scheduled and the tribal areas and the subtopic of the general concerns of the tribal community. Move forward, then what we have the industrial pollution. Now, when we talk about the industrial pollution and the industry, generally what comes in our mind is that basically we connect it with the mainstream. Okay. And mainstream, you can say generally we connect it with the general areas, the normal areas, the urban areas, and all. That is, you can say, right. Okay. Because the pollution generally will be there where it's a high population and the modern population. All right. But there is a one thing that we ignored here. What is that? Basically, however, the scheduled and the tribal areas are mostly in the forest or even in the remote areas where the industries were not that much of developed in the history that were developing in the modern areas, right? That could be right and that could be acceptable. But the one thing is there, the scheduled and the tribal areas are not that much of cut off, okay, that they were used to be in the history. Why? Because as the evolution of modern society taken place, okay, we discovered various kind of minerals and all right. And basically, every nation tries to find the minerals within its own territory so that the nation should not be dependent on the other nation for the supply. Similar thing adopted by India also. Like in India, with the technological advancement, basically we invested billions of dollars on the research and all. Okay. And we have found various kind of minerals in the land of India. Okay. But one thing that comes here is that when we found that mineral resources, there was a one thing. Many of these resources are available in such an area that areas are basically inhabited by the tribals. Okay. Like if you take the example of Deccan Plateau, Central India, basically. If you take the example of Chotanagpur Plateau, okay, the northeast and the eastern part, all right, even if you take the example of some other area, mostly you will find that these area falls under the territories of the tribals and the schedule. Okay. And these minerals are required by the nation for domestic purpose, also for the export purpose. Okay. For fulfilling this kind of things, basically we started different kind of mining activities. And where should these mining plants would be there? Should we implement these mining plants in the city of New Delhi, in the city of Chennai, in the city of Hyderabad? No. Why? Because these areas do not having that particular element that we are looking for. Basically, the mines would be there where these things are available, right? That is the thing. So that's why different kind of mining activities basically started in the areas of the scheduled and tribals that basically converted this as an general concerns of the tribal community. Okay. Now you will ask, sir, when we talk about the minings, okay, mostly time in the news channels, in the various documentaries and various TV programs and others, we have seen that whenever the mines going to be operational in an area. So basically, this is the livelihood opportunity for many people because the people who could do the physical work, they will get a job. The people who are skilled in some kind of mining operation, they will be get job. All right. And even when the mining would be there, the area will flourish. Why? Because many times, like we have seen, like you can take the example of Tata Nagar, Jamshedpur. Okay. So the history of Tata Nagar, if you try to track it down, then it is coming from the era back to the British. Okay. How? I'm not knowing the exact year. That was nearly about 1909 and all. Okay. When the Tata were looking for the area where they could implement the mining plant. Okay. Because during this time, mostly minerals that we had in India, these minerals were totally under the control of Britishers. Okay. And basically, when the Tatas were looking for the mineral activities and minerals and minings, basically they were founding the area that was not under the control of the Britishers. In order to find it in Jharkhand, basically near the river of Subarnika River. Okay, on the banks of Subarnika River, basically the Tatas got succeeded. Okay, and they established the first indigenous firm of the country for the iron and steel. That name was TISCO. Okay. So if I ask you like what is the full form of TISCO, so what should be the answer? To answer this question, I will grant you 30 seconds to think an answer and your time starts now. It is the question from the general knowledge and it is a most basic question, I will say. I am not saying that it's a difficult type of question. 10 seconds have been passed, last 20s are remaining. Think about it. Think faster. Okay, the 10 seconds are remaining. The time is going to be up. The time's up. The correct answer is Tata Iron and Steel Corporation. Again, I'm repeating Tata Iron and Steel Corporation, TISCO. Okay, Jamshedpur near Subarnaka. Okay, so when the Tata began its operation in the 1909, the most probably the year this, you can Google it. I'm not so much aware about the year. All right. So there were so many kind of development activities taken place. Okay, like you can say, basically there was a one thing also, like I forgot to tell you. When the Tata began their operation, how did the Tata's firm was growing? Because of the First World War. The First World War on that time taken the place. Okay. If I ask you like what is the tenure of the First World War and the Second World War, what should be the answer? I have told you this thing almost 3 to 4 times, so I'm expecting the right answer from all of you. 30 seconds, time starts now. Just tell me what is the time period or the tenure of First World War and the Second World War. Okay, 10 seconds have been passed. Last 20s are remaining. And this is also from the, you can say, the general knowledge point of view. It is not so much hard question that I'm asking you right now. Last 10 seconds are there. Okay, just think about it. Time is going to be up and the time's up. So the correct answer is the First World War taken place in the 1914 to 1918. The Second World War taken place from 1939 to 1945. Okay. So during the First World War, when the British got engaged in the World War, basically they were having the demand of the iron and steel for their military operations as well as their domestic purposes. Okay. And for this, the firms that were under the Britishers, however, these firms were supplying the iron and steel to the Britishers. But the supply was not that much of capable that was requiring at that time. So basically, the TISCO, the Tata firm, got an, you can say, offer from the Britishers or got an opportunity to supply the iron stand for the Britishers so that the Britishers could use it in the wartime. Okay, that was the thing. And now, if we talk about Tata Nagar is one of the you can say most developed industrial area. Okay, and also the industrial township program or township city you can call it. Okay, so generally from this example we can say whenever the term mining activities come in our mind, we usually thought mine would be there, the employment would be there, then nearby it the development will start it. That things are there. All right, but this mining activities is not uniformly the same. Might be the Tata Nagar, the Jamshedpur got developed, but it is not necessary that every area that are having the mines that would be developed. Okay. So basically, that is a thing like we cleared the doubt. Now, if we move forward, what we will see, mining operation often result in the deforestation, okay, soil erosion, right, and the water pollution. And if we talk about how, then first is suppose our some satellite is revolving in the in the atmosphere or over the earth, okay, and the task that we had given to that satellite was search for the minerals. When the satellite was revolving, they found that that particular forest area having that kind of minerals and all, right? So basically, that forest is to be cleared because when the mining activities should be begin, basically they required the heavy machinery, plant and all. Okay, they required the roads to reach the mining area, get the raw materials supplied to the industries and all. And even if the mining area is having nearby industries, so in settling of the layout of the industries, the trees will be cut off. So because of this, the first thing is the deforestation that will occur, right? Soil erosion. If we talk about it, what do you understand by the soil erosion? I had already told you. To answer this, 30 seconds time starts now. Just think about it. I have already explained you what you mean by the soil erosion. Okay. So I'm expecting the right answer from all of you this time. 10 seconds have been passed. Last 20 seconds are remaining. Just think quickly. Think swiftly. Okay. All right. Last 10 seconds are there to think an answer. Then I will give you the answer. Okay. Last 5 seconds are there. Just think about it. All right. The time's up. So basically, soil erosion is the activity of removing the top layer of the soil. Okay, because when we talk about the soil's top layer containing the various kind of nutrients, various kind of resources that we are required for the agriculture purposes and all. Okay, and when this top layer gets removed because of the wind action, the human activities, the water reactions and all, so basically the top nutritious layers removal causes a fertility loss within that particular soil. Okay, and how the mining activities given rise to soil erosion? Because when the heavy machinery will be working over the land, when the trucks will be moving, even the water uses for different kind of purposes in the mining. So all of these are basically doing what? They are ultimately removing the top layer of the soil. Okay, that is the reason why the mining operations are, you can say, causes that depletion in the soil erosion. Then the water pollution, how it will be do? Like when the mines are working. Okay. So generally, if you have seen the mines in the picture and all, you will find that there are the water reservoir nearby. It is quite common. So basically, these water receivers are getting the debris from the mines. All right. Getting the different kind of other pollutants. Okay. That also impacted the water pollution. And these things like the deforestation, soil erosion, water pollution, basically combining impacting the health and the environment of the indigenous communities. Health, how? Because the water receivers that are presenting to the mining sites, basically these water receivers are using by the indigenous for their drinking purposes. Okay. So when they consume this contaminated water, so basically the health of them would be impacted. Okay. And if we talk about the environment, if we talk about the environment, so basically the forest cover is reducing because of the mining operation. Deforestation is going on there because the soil erosions are impacting. Because the soil erosion is impacting, so the nutrition layer of the soil is removing, and these things basically impacting the indigenous communities who are totally dependent on these things for their survival. Okay. After the mining operations, the next worried thing is the industrial waste. Okay. So if we talk about it, then we can say basically pollution from the industries near the forest areas contaminates the natural resources. Okay. Like you can say, if you look at the industries, then generally you will find that the industries are not allowed to get set up in the main urban or the residential areas. Why? Because the industrial operation generates a contaminated waste that is harmful for the humans and harmful for the environment and all. That's why the industries are oftenly directed to get settled down outside the cities or at quite distance from the proximities of the residential areas, right? And generally, these are near to the forest areas. So when the industries set up near the forest areas, whatsoever waste they developed during their operation codes, basically that pollution being transferred to the forest areas that contaminates our natural resources. Okay. And we know the natural resources are the main things on which the tribal communities that are living in that forest area and all, they are totally rely. Like for drinking water, they are rely on the water receivers of the forest. For food, they are rely on the different kind of crops they are growing and all. For medicine, trees. Okay. For example, we can say industries. For example, we can say industries discharging their waste in the water receivers that we have the that industry is discharging their waste in the water receivers or chemical waste. So basically the water receiver would be contaminated, and who is consuming the water from it? Tribal communities, right? They are the one who are consuming the water from it. Similarly, if we talk about food, the industrial waste is basically dumping on the grounds. Because of this, the soil of this ground is getting contaminated. Who is using that soil for growing different kind of crops and all? The tribal communities. Medicine. Okay. Different kind of poisonous gases and other things basically discharges in the forest. Even the contaminated water has been absorbed by the trees and all. Okay. So what will happen? These trees will become the contaminated, and various of them are basically used for the food purposes and the medicine purposes. So basically, this contamination would be harmful for the consumer who is consuming them. All right. After this, if we talk about another one, that is the failure to recognize the rights. Okay. Like we have discussed about the insecure land tenure in the previous lecture also. Okay. And what was that? Many indigenous or the Adivasi communities, they do not having the formal titles to their ancestral lands. Okay. Why? Because if we talk about the mainstream, if we talk about the modern world in which we are living, so if you are owing any property, then you must be a legal owner of that property. And how it could be? Like suppose if you are the one who is going to purchase some house. Okay. So if you claim that you are the owner of that house, then what will be the legality of it? That house must be registered in your name on the valid legal paper. Got it? That would be a thing. But if the house is not registered on your name, okay, on the valid legal document, then basically what will happen? Then this house is not belong to them, not belong to you. Similar things happening here. Basically, if we talk about the ancestral lands and all, okay, so basically what happens here, like the indigenous communities who are doing the survival on the ancestral lands that they have got from their ancestors, okay, they do not register it as per the law we have in the country. Okay. So what happened? The external entities like the normal mainstream people, the corporations, the companies, they, by using the legal means, could easily encroach the ancestral lands. Why? Because they will simply say, if the tribals claiming that that lands belong to him, very easily the action entity could go to the court and say to the court, like if that particular lands belong to that community or that person, then they must have the legal registration of it. Is it there? No. No legal registration is there. Then what will happen? What will happen? Basically, the court will say you are not a legal owner of that land. So basically, that land not belongs to you. And once this clear that the land not belongs to him, the land could be easily acquired by the external entity. Okay, and without giving the proper compensation, like compensation given when I'm taking your land. Okay, like you can say if you go to the court and you claim that this person has taken over my land, has encroached my land, and not giving the compensation. Then the court will ask me, have you done it? I said yes. Then the court will say, why you are not paying the compensation? I could easily say, I'm not paying the compensation. Why? Because that person who is claiming that land belongs to him is not the legal owner of that land. Because the land was not registered to his name on the legal documentation. And when he is not the owner of that land, like how we can say that the person is eligible for the compensation amount that he is claiming for. Okay. And the court will say, okay, we will go by the law and the court will permit me to have that land. Okay. And will not order me to give any kind of compensation to you because you are not the owner of that land in the eyes of law. Because law says that land must be registered in your name. If not, you're not the owner. Okay. So basically, the external entities acquire the lands, not giving the compensation, and even the indigenous communities could not claim for it because they do not own that land legally. Okay. Then the displacement. Large scale development projects like dams and minings often lead to the displacement of tribal communities without the adequate rehabilitation and the resettlement measures. So basically, different entities, when even the government companies, when they start doing the development projects in the tribal areas, so basically they are instructed, okay, to give the adequate rehabilitation sites and resettlement measures, even with the fair compensation, okay, to the tribals who lost their lands and were forced to displace because of the activity. But still, there are so many loopholes in the systems that could be used by these entities, okay, in order to avoid giving any adequate rehabilitation, making any resettlement measures, and giving any kind of fair compensation for the encroachment of the land they had. Okay, so that is the failure to recognize the rights. So, students, basically in this lecture, we have finished till here. In the next lecture, we will continue from here. Till then, just revise the facts and figures we have discussed and be ready for the next lecture. With this note, let's end this lecture and thank you.